Get ready for Benjamin Knight Fuchs live. Ben, how's it going?
What is going on, Mr. Liam? How you doing today? I know we're a little late. Usually we're on Sundays. A busy week. Getting real busy for me. How about for you?
Yeah.
Super
busy.
So we do what we can do. I'm in the skin business, been in the skin business for many years, and the number one skin complaint that people have is dry skin. And everybody who has dry skin thinks that they could put a moisturizer on, so-called moisturizer on, and get rid of their dry skin. It's never happened. In fact, even worse, the more moisturizer you use, and I'm going to do air quotes because there's no such thing as a moisturizer, really. I'll tell you what I mean here in a second. The more of these kinds of products you use, the drier your skin becomes.
No,
absolutely. I'll tell you how that mechanism works in a moment. But we all know this happens with the lips. The more chapstick, Blistex, Carmex you use, the more you need.
Sure.
So these products that they call moisturizers, A, don't do anything of the sort. When you take a sponge and you wet it, it's moist. It's moist, right? When you have a wet sponge. When you put a moisturizer on, does your skin feel like a wet sponge? Of course not. It doesn't at all feel like a wet sponge.
No.
It doesn't have anything to do with moisture. When you put a moisturizer on, what does your skin feel like? It feels slick, greasy, waxy. You put coating on the skin. You didn't do any moisturizing. It's a silly word. It has nothing. Moisturizers have nothing to do with moisturizing or with moisture. It's illogical. On top of that, there are moisture factors in the skin that keep the surface of the skin hydrated. And these moisture factors are suppressed when you pile on cream and gook on the surface, assuring yourself of permanently dry skin the more you use these so-called moisturizing products. On top of all that, we don't even know we have dry skin. We know we have rough, hard skin. And we think that roughness and hardness is dry skin, which allows us to use greasy, oily, waxy substances on the surface to soften the skin. And we think we're moisturizing. Moisturizing is moisture. Rough, dry skin can be softened with lotion, but it can't be hydrated or moisturized. That's a function of water. You cannot so-called moisturize the skin. I keep saying so-called because I have no other words to use. That's the word we use by using these types of products. Even worse, it suppresses, and logic tells you that moisture is water. You're not doing anything with water when you put stuff on the surface of the skin. Even worse, you're suppressing the skin's ability to trap water. Even worse, we don't even know we have dry skin. We only know we have rough skin. And this is why you'll hear sometimes people say, oh, I use coconut oil on my skin, or oh, I use olive oil on my skin.
Sure.
Oh, they have these kind of DIY kind of ideas that they can take care of their so-called dry skin by putting these products, these oils on their skin. How can an oil moisturize? It's the opposite, but it can soften.
Oil and water.
But it can soften. Yeah. And so that's not a bad thing if you want to soften your skin, but you're not hydrating it. Why is this important? Because hydration of the skin is associated with skin health. Hydration of the skin is associated with anti-aging or slowing down the aging process of the skin. Hydration of the skin is associated with the production of all the good stuff in the skin. Water is critical for the skin. You're not doing anything with water, with a so-called moisturizer, except for perhaps sealing up the barriers so stuff doesn't evaporate. But that is not how you want to keep the skin, hydrated. Now, the question then becomes is how does the skin stay hydrated under normal conditions? We know that kids don't have dry skin, so something's keeping their skin hydrated. Babies don't have dry skin. Something's keeping their skin hydrated. We know that hydration is important, or water is important for the skin health, and nature has a system for keeping the body, include all the parts of the body, including the skin, healthy. So how does nature, God, the divine force, whatever you want to call it, how is it set up to keep the skin hydrated, moist, filled with water? I'll bet if I ask anybody who's listening here, I don't know who's listening, but listening in the future anyway, what is the one system or what is the one part of the body that keeps the skin hydrated under healthy conditions, under normal healthy conditions? What is supposed to keep the skin hydrated? How does this happen? Hardly anybody would ever know. Maybe nobody would know. Bingo.
The blood?
Bingo.
The blood?
Bingo. You're the first person that got it. It's the blood that hydrates the skin. Do you know how that happens? That's excellent that you knew that. Nobody knows.
I haven't.
That's just a wild guess. I mean, it's not a wild guess. It's logical because everything's related to the blood, right? That's awesome, Liam. I'm very impressed, I have to say. Nobody ever guessed it. So here's how it works. The blood travels throughout the whole body, obviously, and it gets to the skin. And when it comes to the skin, which is on the extremities, it only goes up to the bottom of the skin. The skin is made up of 3 main layers. Most healthcare professionals or even lay people will tell you the skin's made up of 2 layers, but it's really 3 layers. The 3 layers are the bottom, which is the bulk of the skin, and that's called the dermis, about 90% of the skin. This is where you have blood. Then you go up to the epidermis, no blood, tippy top, and that's the stratum corneum, the barrier. That's what everybody knows about. And when you say you have dry skin, what you really mean you have a rough stratum corneum. Nobody knows they have dry skin. All they know is they have a rough stratum corneum. The blood only goes up to the dermis, and the blood is where the fluid comes from, because you see the blood as it's circulating around the body goes from big vessels to smaller and smaller and smaller vessels, right? You've seen these pictures probably. Yes, big vessels, smaller and smaller and smaller vessels. The tiniest vessels are called capillaries. These capillaries go up to the dermis. Capillaries are very small. And at the level of the capillaries, water leaks out. And that water then diffuses upwards. And then that water that diffuses upwards comes to rest in the goes through the dermis, and it finally accumulates between the cells of the epidermis. The epidermis has cells. The dermis doesn't have a lot of cells, but the epidermis has cells. And these cells of the epidermis have spaces between them, and fluids, the water, as it's rising up, sort of cushions and accumulates on the outside part of the cells. Then there are holes in the cells, pores, if you will. They call them, cool name, aquaporins. That's really the name, aquaporins. And these aquaporins act as openings or pores for the water to go into the cells. And then the water goes into the cells, and as the water goes into the cells become hydrated and thick and soft, and this is how the cells stay hydrated. And then the interstitial cells, the cells in between, they rise up to the top, further hydrating the outside part of the cells and getting into the stratum corneum. And so this is how the stratum corneum and the epidermis and the dermis stay hydrated, through diffusion.
It's like a irrigation
system.
Like an
irrigation system. Exactly. Nice metaphor. Now, the stratum corneum has a secondary mechanism of hydration, and that is molecules that live inside the cells. The cells on the surface of the stratum corneum are dead, but there are these molecules. They're made up of protein, amino acids, actually, and electrolytes and sugars, and they absorb water. And they absorb water from 2 directions. They absorb water from the bottom, so this diffusion, the water that's diffusing upwards gets sucked into the stratum corneum with essentially these magnets, water magnets or water sponges. They're called the natural moisture factor, literally. And even better than that, these natural moisture factor molecules in the surface of the skin suck water up out of the air, out of the humidity. So they get hydrated from 2 directions. So what's the problem? What goes wrong? Well, a couple things. First of all, when you wear a so-called moisturizer, the natural moisture factor can no longer suck water up from the ambient humidity. It's blocked. You've suppressed its ability to trap moisture. On top of that,
crazy.
When you put stuff on the surface of the skin, you slow down the movement of water from the surface. So water doesn't get into the stratum corneum as efficiently from the bottom up or from the top down when you wear a moisturizer. Then your moisturizer wears off, and now your skin's really dry. Of course, what do most people do? They put another moisturizer on. The same thing happens. And this is called getting addicted to your moisturizing product. Now that's the stratum corneum. That's the surface. And that's where we feel the dry skin. But remember, the hydration of the skin is not important just for our comfort. It's important for the health of the skin. Skin that's dehydrated is more prone towards diseases, inflammation, psoriasis, acne, eczema, even skin cancer, and certainly accelerated aging. When you suppress when the dermis and the epidermis are not as hydrated, you're suppressing chemistry. The tissue, the organ becomes unhealthy. Sure. So what do? Moisturizers don't work. That's not the answer. So what do you do? Well, what is the problem here? The problem is with dry skin is the blood is not moving effectively. Remember, all disease is cell disease, and all cell disease is a function of dirty blood, coagulated blood, sticky blood, everything, including dry skin. We don't think of dry skin, it's a blood issue, but now that I've told you this mechanism, you can see it's a function of the blood not moving with great facility. And what is it that causes dirty blood? The triangle of disease, which is what we're going to talk about right here. So pop up the first screen, the first slide. Gut-skin axis, current knowledge of the interrelationship between microbial dysbiosis, that's a fancy way of saying messed up gut bacteria. Where's my article here? I have it somewhere. Actually, I don't even have it. I forgot to print it up. But what this is an article that talks about various skin diseases, not specifically dry skin, but let's see if I can read it. Pull it up a little bit. I forgot to print it. Acne, dandruff, skin cancer, dermatitis, psoriasis, altered immune response, all as a function of messed up gut bacteria. Bingo. First point on the triangle of disease. Next slide. This one's more related to xerosis. Xerosis, by the way, is a fancy name for dry skin. It's a chemical name for dry skin. This is really kind of interesting. This is a study where they gave a novel, pull it down to the headline here. Pull to the headline, Liam. A novel microbial therapeutic based on a vaginal bacteria. They extracted it. Go up to the abstract if you don't mind. Okay, stop right there. This study highlights the efficacy of a microbiome therapeutic, that is a bacteria that was derived from healthy vaginal microbiome in improving xerosis. They actually took bacteria from the vagina of random women, I suppose. I don't know, they got women to do this, and they used it as moisturizer. Now I'm trying to see here, the effects are attributed to microbiome safe component and its role in improving xerosis. Who would ever think that bacteria in the gut, or for that matter, in the vaginal tract, have a role to play in stratum corneum hydration? According to this, for a double-blind clinical trial involving 43 subjects with dry skin, compared the effects of an 2.9% formulation. They put 2.9% as bacteria to a placebo over 4 weeks. They applied it topically to the stratum corneum. Boom, 21.4% decrease in water loss and evaporation. So yet again, we see the relationship between bacteria, in this case vaginal bacteria, which are similar to gut bacteria, and skin health. In this case, xerosis. Next slide. Surprise, surprise. What's our second point on the triangle of disease? Of course, it is dysglycemia, messed up gut bacteria. And so what do we see here? Skin manifestations of diabetes. What is the classic skin manifestation of diabetes? I'm trying to find, I can't believe I have all these things. I can find my studies here, my article, Skin Manifestations of Diabetes. This one is from, this is actually a medical text, endo text. Quote, the most common epidermal change in, I'm sorry, that's not the right article here. Let's see, here. Boom, boom, boom. This one is on, I kind of messed this one up here, unfortunately. Skin manifestations strongly associate with diabetes. Common skin infections in diabetes, or common skin conditions in diabetes include xerosis. This is from medical textbook, Skin Manifestations of Diabetes. Again, we see a relationship between the triangle of disease and all health challenges, in this case, skin diseases or xerosis. Next slide. This is kind of interesting. Vitamin A is a fat-soluble vitamin, and it's involved in secretions. And there's a medicine that people take sometimes that poisons the vitamin A system of the body. That's called Accutane. And the major side effect of Accutane is dryness, incredible dryness, not just skin dryness, but throat dryness, dry eyes. um, uh, just overall dryness head to toe. It dries up secretions, even digestive secretions. That's because vitamin A is a major secretory vitamin. Vitamin A is absorbed at the level of the intestine. Lack of vitamin A, either through lack of intake or through malabsorption of fatty vitamins, which is unfortunately very common, particularly when you have Crohn's disease and irritable bowel syndrome, leaky gut issues, any kind of digestive problems, can also relate to dryness and xerosis. And this happens to be a study that talks about generalized xerosis. Vitamin A deficiency usually manifests as night blindness, but in this study they talk about an unusual manifestation of vitamin A deficiency presenting with generalized xerosis without night blindness. In other words, vitamin A causing dryness. What this tells you is two things. Number one, malabsorption of vitamin A could be a problem. If you have malabsorption issues, you're likely not going to be absorbing your vitamin A, but also using vitamin A is a wonderful strategy for moisturizing or hydrating the skin from the inside out. Next study. Cutaneous symptoms and syndromes in pathology of digestive organs. This is a Russian study from Perm State Medical University. I don't know where that is, but it's somewhere in Russia. Quote, in some cases, chronic diseases of small intestine with malabsorption, is what we're talking about, malabsorption, particularly of vitamins and essential fats, results in acquired ichthyosis, i.e. dry skin, or as they describe it, the characteristic of which is dry skin, stretching and scaling of the skin, widespread itching, especially after bathing. Skin becomes thin and dry. Also, hair becomes skin and dry. And also, by the way, this happens. This also includes atrophy and fragility of the nails. All of this is secondary to digestive health problems. They describe in this article digestive health problems not just as intestinal issues, which we've been talking about, but also liver disease, bile disease, and pancreatic issues, all of which are involved in the absorption of general nutrients, but particularly fats. I think we have one more. Dermatological manifestations of thyroid disease. Boom, boom, boom. This one is from the journal Frontiers in Endocrinology. Thyroid hormone is considered one of the key regulatory hormones for homeostasis. The most common change in skin change in hypothyroidism is xerosis cutis. Fancy way of saying excessively dry and scaly skin, most especially on the exterior surfaces of the extremities, including the palms and the soles of the feet. There we have it, folks. Now, there are a lot of other factors when it comes to play when it comes to dry skin. There's an amino acid called histidine found in high protein foods, which is very important for strengthening the skin barrier. Electrolytes, potassium and magnesium and calcium and sodium are important for trapping water inside the epidermis. So as the water is flowing, trapping it is also important, and electrolytes are important for trapping. And check this out. Collagen, everybody's favorite protein, particularly in the skin business, is also important for trapping water. In fact, not just trapping water, but also structuring or organizing water. I think we've talked about structured water in the past. So as our collagen deteriorates with age, our ability to hydrate the skin goes down. And this is another cause of dry skin. So the barrier is involved. The amino acid histidine plays a role. Collagen is involved. Electrolytes are involved. But the most important thing you want to focus on if you're dealing with dry skin is internal health. And that is metabolic health, meaning blood sugar and digestive, and also the thyroid. There are wonderful nutrients that you could take in addition to the nutrients for supporting digestive health. Obviously, there are things like digestive enzymes, which are very important, lecithin granules, bile salts. For you guys into the longevity products, the longevity ultimate enzymes can play an important role in helping support absorption of nutrients. Stomach acid supplements, betaine, HCl, which you'll find in the ultimate enzymes. Bile salts, lecithin granules, I mentioned those. Those are very important. One of the most powerful foods you could eat for soft, moist, hydrated skin is eggs. Why? Because eggs contain something called phospholipids, which play a role in keeping the skin barrier healthy. And then, of course, your fatty vitamins play an incredibly important role. We mentioned vitamin A, but also vitamin D is important. Vitamin E is important. And arguably, one of the most important nutrients you could take internally is essential fatty acids. Both omega-6 and omega-3 alpha linolenic acid, which is omega-3, and linoleic acid, which is omega-6. You will hear some people saying not to use omega-6 essential fatty acids or eat foods that contain omega-6 essential fatty acids because we get too many of them. Not true, because we cook and we lose our essential fats. So nobody gets too much essential fats, even though we eat foods that should contain them. So use supplements. Longevity's Ultimate EFAs are great. I like Udo's blend. You want a balance of omega-6s to omega-3s. They're both important. Omega-6s are especially important for the barrier and also for the production of skin fats. And then omega-3s play a calming role, an anti-inflammatory role that's very important. Inflammation can also be involved in dysfunctional skin chemistry, which can lead to skin dryness. So there's a whole bunch of things you can do. Of course, you can also support collagen production. Ironically, exfoliation can turn on the production of or stimulate the growth of new cells, which can turn on the production of the natural moisture factor. So exfoliation strategies can be very important. I like alpha hydroxy acids, which can play a role. There's lots of ways to exfoliate, but I particularly am fond of alpha hydroxy acids. Retinol is kind of interesting. Topical retinol is kind of interesting, and I'm a big fan of topical retinol because topical retinol is vitamin A, so it will give you some vitamin A benefits, and there's some literature that supports the idea that topically applied vitamin A can actually make it into cells and function as vitamin A. I haven't seen a lot of literature support that, but I've read some of it, some studies that indicate that. But most importantly, retinol will exfoliate, turning on the production of new cells, which means the production of more natural moisture factor. The opposite, exfoliation that is the opposite of using a moisturizer. Exfoliation turns everything on. Using a moisturizer suppresses everything. The more moisturizer you use, the more dry skin you'll have. And this, the chronic use of moisturizers, in addition to the lack of addressing or the misunderstanding about addressing internal issues like messed up blood sugar, dysglycemia, disturbances at the level of the digestive tract in general and the intestine specifically, as well as hypothyroidism, are all issues that have to be addressed if you have dry skin. And keep in mind, we don't know we have dry skin. We only know we have rough, hard skin. The dryness of the skin, literally the hydration level of the skin, is critical for the health of the skin. Yeah, you can soften the surface of the skin. You're not going to change the moisture levels, though. The moisture levels of the skin cannot, for the most part, be changed from the top down a little bit via the natural moisture factor, but it's mostly going to be a blood issue from the bottom up. Last thing I'll say, this is where water can play a role. Water doesn't directly hydrate the skin, but water will fluidize the blood and make the blood make it easier for the blood to move to the to the outside part of the body, where it can make it through the capillaries and then release its water content into the dermis and then upwards into the epidermis and stratum corneum. It's a lot of stuff. That's dry skin, huh? And what do people do when they have dry skin? They put a moisturizer.
Exfoliation turns everything on, and moisturizer turns everything off.
Exactly. Now, if you want a topical, I should say something here, though. Topical vitamins. Now, that's what I do at Truth, by the way. You were talking about my Truth treatments. My Truth treatments are topical nutritional supplements. So topical vitamin C can support the health of the skin via the vitamin C strengthening or protecting, actually, the fats. Vitamin C can also protect the skin barrier. Vitamin C also has anti-inflammatory effects, and all of these can help naturally improve the health of the skin, which will improve the skin softness as well as the skin hydration. And then the aforementioned retinol, its ability to turn on the production of natural moisture factors by exfoliation, also by stimulating collagen production. I forgot to mention that. Vitamin C also stimulates collagen production. And then ionic minerals. I love my ionic minerals. Applied topically to the skin will make it through the stratum corneum, not all the way to the bottom of the epidermis, but to the middle of the epidermis, where they can hold on to and help trap water to keep it local, to keep the epidermis hydrated. So if you want topical strategies, think topical vitamin C, retinol, also ionic plant-derived minerals, which is what we use in our biomimetic moisture mist and other Truth products. And then there was one more thing I was going to say. Using alpha hydroxy acids for exfoliation can also be helpful.
So it's Mother's Day coming
Yeah,
up.
I've got a Mother's Day.
So bookmark this video and say, Ma, you just lathering a bunch of stuff on your skin. Go to truthtreatments.com and do something good for your skin.
No.
So how does your products, right? You're saying moisturizers like are dumping oil
How is
and
Truth different?
grease and how is Truth
Because
different?
they're topical nutritional supplements. They're not coatings.
Okay.
They're vitamins, minerals, amino acids, and fatty acids that are designed to go down into the skin and react or activate or interact with skin cells. I'm looking at the cells. The cells will take care of the tissue. Remember, the body and the skin and all the organs of the body are made up like raisin bread of two components, raisins and bread. Except the body's not raisin bread, it's a body. So instead of raisins and bread, it's got cells and stuff that comes out of the cells. They call that extracellular matrix. So the cells are where you got to be if you want to change the extracellular matrix. I'm not interested in the extracellular matrix. The cells will take care of the extracellular matrix. I'm interested in the cells. Skincare products are taking care of the outside part of most skincare products are taking care of the outside part of the cell. That doesn't help you. That's like trying to take care of the rotten fruit on the tree by spraying the fruit or by treating the fruit. It's already rotten. There's nothing you can do about that. You got to go to the soil. The tissue represents the fruit or the branches or the outside, the end result. If your branches or your leaves or your fruit is rotten, you don't treat the fruit or the branches or the leaves. You treat the soil. You treat tomorrow's fruit, tomorrow's branches, tomorrow's leaves. Likewise with the skin or any other part of the body, you don't treat the tissue if you really want to make a change. That cow has left the barn. That ship has sailed. That's over. You got to get to tomorrow's tissue issues, whether it's dry skin or psoriasis or eczema or any internal condition as well. It's the cell that counts. Nutrition is the most important ingredients for the cells.
Outstanding.
Thank you, my friend.
So there you have it. Great Mother's Day gift. Truthtreatments.com. Ben, incredible presentation. I learned. I'm going to impress all my friends with my new knowledge.
These days.
Yes,
Smart.
indeed.
All right, we'll see you next.
All right,
we'll
everybody.
See next Sunday, I think. This Sunday.
Next Sunday? Yeah. We'll see you next Sunday, everybody. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks, Ben. Bye-bye. Take care.